Hi everyone, we have the pleasure today to receive Greta from SATA.ai. Hi Greta, welcome on board. It's a pleasure to receive you on our French AutoTech calls.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. To introduce very quickly this conversation, we're going to talk about AI and machine learning to help car automakers and OEMs to make the right decision fast, to optimize production, to improve product quality, and to reduce scrap and rework. But before to understand your business and your adventure, because every creation of a company is an adventure of which we know the beginning, but we never, but never the end. In fact, we always start this type of exchange with the same question, dear Greta. What problem do you solve? Because I remind to our listeners that if you don't solve a problem when you launch a startup, you will not make any turnover. So what do you solve for of problem?
That's a great question.
I know.
So I'd say right now, the automotive industry especially is going through a big transformation where, many manufacturers are changing to, have a much more advanced products, either smart products or EV, so products that they need to put into the vehicle. So what that means is manufacturing processes and operations are becoming more and more complex. There's a ton more sensors, automation, data in production. The challenge is, and the problem is that there's a lot of data being generated. But today, it's really difficult for the engineers and operators on the lines to really leverage that to help them in their day-to-day operations. Main challenges, they're not data scientists. They don't have time to sit down, dig through the data, analyze it, and then decide what it's telling them. They really need quick and real-time insights to help them do their jobs better. So build better parts and build them quickly. And that's really the problem we're solving. We help consolidate all the various data streams in production. We align them around every part that's being produced. And we help manufacturers by providing machine learning and AI-driven analysis to help them make sense of that data and really provide to them insights that they can use in action to ensure good production, good, efficient, high-quality production. So kind of at the heart of that question is, part of the answer is, we solve the problem of there being too much data that isn't being leveraged or isn't useful for the engineers on the line.
Yeah, it's very clear. So you help them to have a better view and to work better and to see more clearly the data and the problem, in fact, that they have. So it's very interesting. And which clients do you work with? And what about your customers? What about the results your customers have seen?
Yeah, so we predominantly work with, tier one manufacturers and OEMs within the automotive and off-highway space. So basically various tier one components from axles, engines, transmissions, gearboxes, batteries and motors even. So a variety of manufacturers and manufacturing production lines. Predominantly where we focus is, it's very complex systems where a lot of precision is necessary. Because there's, a lot of components that are being assembled. They all need to work together in a certain way. So there's a lot of complexity and a lot of things that could go wrong as a result as well. So that's kind of where we focus predominantly today. But of course, we can have an impact on simpler kind of components as well over time. And the challenges could occur in many ways. One major challenge, of course, is day-to-day production. Things change all the time. Certain machines can get miscalibrated. Certain operations can trend outside of their normal performance. So our solution kind of monitors all of the different sensors and signals across the production and in real time, and it can already either detect or predict if anything's about to go wrong in production. So, the engineers in a data-driven way can know, where they need to look and what to fix very quickly. We also, if the manufacturers have a problem, so for example, sometimes you go through the whole production, everything meets the spec. At the end, they run end-of-line testing, and their end-of-line tests can fail. There's no clear indication as to what caused it. So we run a lot of models against the production line as well, and all of the data to help direct them exactly to the operations or the measurements that are causing the problem. So that way, instead of, having to run around, try to aggregate the data, try to figure out where it's happening, we basically in a matter of minutes can tell them, hey, this is the source of your problem. Go and fix this station or go and fix this process. And we find that helps manufacturers a lot. One, it helps them save, time and money day to day because they have lower failure rates and improved throughput from that perspective. But also it helps them avoid kind of a lot of costs and losses that could result in warranties sometimes, especially if certain issues go unnoticed and make it into the final product.
Yeah, in fact, it's very interesting because we have seen between Tesla and Volkswagen a big difference, and so we know that the digital transformation and the revolution of the digital is about how to sell your car, but as well how you manufacture your car. And for instance, Volkswagen. So the Tesla Model 3 is done with a lot very lot better efficiency, and the manufacturer of the factory of Wolfsburg in Germany is gonna be resetted. So the AI and the machine learning and the new technologies can improve as well the way you work in these factories, and so it's very interesting. And maybe you can talk us about your story and the story of the company. I've seen you have three co-founders, or maybe two co-founders, two co-founders and CTO, and it's always interesting to know how you have built this company and how you manage.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So my background, I used to work for Magna International, one of the top three automotive tier one suppliers, and focused a lot on quality and safety of ADAS functionality. So the new technology that's being put into the cars. And one of the main things kind of that stood out to me when I used to work there was that even though we were putting in very advanced technology into the vehicles and it was automated and really cool, the process of making sure that it's performing the right way, that it's doing the right things, that it's functioning correctly was very manual. And we had to do a lot of analysis to to demonstrate it and figure it out. And I really started thinking that there has to be a better way, especially considering that, digitalization is now, impacting manufacturers all across the board, everything from design to manufacturing to on-road operation. Now, you can start generating data. You can see how these products are performing across their whole life cycle. So I started working with a group at the University of Waterloo here in Canada. So Waterloo is one of the top engineering schools in Canada and worldwide, really. And my two co-founders, they were doing research around the topics of how to leverage AI and machine learning to, understand performance of different systems and understand, how they're functioning when something's going wrong, and how to, predict and prevent any issues. And so we were doing research around these topics, and in 2017, saw that there's a lot of need for that type of technology and growing need in the industry, and decided, hey, let's spin off some of the technology and some of the ideas we had, and start a company and see if we can build something into, an actual commercial offering. So fast forward 5 years, we've raised a bunch of funding and are building our platform, focusing today, of course, on manufacturing, but with a broader vision, of connecting the digital thread of data for, any component, any vehicle, and helping manufacturers analyze that as a continuous loop across, both manufacturing, but also on-road operation eventually of these systems.
Yeah, in France, we have as well a lot of laboratories which are working on research, but it's always difficult to match with the business. So we have a lot of intelligence. We have a lot of business makers, but we have to match them. So I have seen that you have managed to do that. So congratulations for that.
Thank you.
So
Still learning.
yeah. It's always a learning.
Yeah.
But how many employees do you have, and do you have raised some funds?
Yeah, so we're at about 40 right now.
All right.
And raised a bit below 10 million US to date.
Okay.
And actually heading off to our next fundraising round in a bit.
Yeah, it's already a great story, but I think you will have a great future. I know in France we have another company which is doing not exactly the same thing of you, but they are collecting when you are developing an autonomous cars, you have a lot of data to collect and to analyze and to take the better data you need. So it's called X Technologies. They are French, but they are working a lot with American one, and especially in Silicon Valley. But maybe you can work with other industries. So you can start with the automotive one, but do you plan to work with other sectors?
No, that's a great question. I'd say yes, over time. I think right now, I personally have a passion for the automotive industry. I think, the type of technology, everything from electrification to autonomy, and just the transformation that the industry is going through is an exciting time. And it's a great time to introduce some of these, advanced solutions to really impact this industry. I also find a lot of the times automotive is the leader in certain types of new innovation that many other industries then kind of take up after it's proven out and, scaled in auto. So long story short, yes, we do want to go into other industries. But we want to be mindful, given that we're a small company, on keeping strong focus in the areas where we're differentiated and strong, because we find every different industry, they have slightly different needs, they have different personalities, they operate differently. And so understanding the industry, the context in which the data is collected, the needs of the line engineers, is very important to us. And so that's kind of been why we focus specifically in this industry to date. But I'd say, 2-3 years from now, likely we'll start looking at, expanding that to broader, discrete manufacturing markets.
Yeah, but I know that it's always challenging for startups, because you have you talk about passion about automotive industry, and I have the same passion. But effectively, in my last startup, that was I have some difficulties, because I was very focused on automotive industry, and it was a mean of payment dedicated to used cars. But in fact, when I think about, I think that I should open and test to other sectors earlier. And it was too late when I tried to test. And if you have a solution, maybe if you have passion on automotive industry, don't be blocked to be focused on only this sector, but maybe you can just test because even if they have the same problem of process of production, maybe they have another mindset, maybe a mindset more open. And if they are more open to AI if it's maybe a younger industry, they can be more open and more listen to your solution. So it's always difficult because it's always difficult, but my advice would be to test.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting to listen to you and your adventure with your team. But it's a way as well to present your solutions to the French market. And what do you search currently? Are you searching for investors to hire some developer or business developer? And what are you searching? If the people who are listening to you today, maybe they can join you and help you.
For sure, we're always looking for help.
we all need to help.
Yeah. But yeah, no, that's a lot of where we're focusing right now. So we definitely interested, the automotive and generally manufacturing ecosystem is really broad. We, of course, focus a lot on North America, but Europe is a great place that we believe, that there's a lot of innovation happening, and we want to be able to bring impact in this industry, in this geography as well. So we started over the last, I'd say, year and a half, or a little bit longer, putting some initial, taking some initial steps and starting to be recognized in this market. So by first, having one of our reps now residing in France, helping broaden our presence in the French ecosystem. So some of the things, we're constantly looking for is, finding some great, new innovative partners in this space to try out our solutions and see, what the type of, or experience the type of impact they can bring. So that means, finding the manufacturers and potential customers and partners in this market. So as I look for, as we go into our next round of growth and capital, definitely something we'll be looking at is expanding our presence in Europe. So both France and Germany are likely going to be the first targets for us. So, over time, we'll be looking for, great people to join our teams within these geographies. So that's kind of going to be a focus, and growing our presence with the partners and customers in this geography are going to be a target.
All right. So if people are listening to us today, they can join you on LinkedIn or join us. We can exchange by email. And how do you see the future of car manufacturing? Because when we see Tesla, how they sell, but how they product the car. How do you see the future? It's a very historic industry. And do you think that they will all be able to change? Because when you produce a new car, we can see with Tesla, but the competitors as well. It's quite complicated to start the production, but it's lot more complicated to be profitable. So I think that your solutions maybe would be very useful to the historic competitors.
Yeah, no, for sure. To your point, kind of, if we look at some of the more innovative or some new entrants into the market, a lot of them have the luxury of implementing net new product and production lines, very digitalized, much more data, and really experiment with these new technologies. Something that I'm finding, the existing manufacturers are starting to do in their new facilities. So, especially with EV components, they're a lot more electrified, so a lot more software and a lot more sensors, and as a result, a lot more data potential. And I'd say solutions like ours are really, and we are really focusing and helping manufacturers, not just, optimize high volume, stable production, but really help them ramp up faster. One of the challenges I'm seeing that many manufacturers who are going into net new product lines, they don't necessarily have a long, decade-long experience in running that process in manufacturing that product. So ramping up a new product and then trying to scale it becomes very challenging. And I think that's exactly where, these data-driven solutions can be extremely impactful in reducing the time to market and the ramp-up time. Because otherwise, I think, if we had decades to get to this, with EVs and other components to the same place as we are now with the ICEs, then, we don't need to change the processes. But the challenge is we don't. We're trying to get there in a couple of years and, expedite this whole process. So that means, the processes where we're used to having a lot of manual effort, we need to automate those and bring that that speed in operations. And that's really where I find, data-driven solutions can have a ton of impact. And yes, there's some, many solutions today focused, on, predicting, machine failures and things like that. And that's definitely helpful. But what I'm talking about here is really focus on, ramping up the quality and process related efforts within production that often, slow down that ramp and slow down the throughput of new components out the door.
Yeah, finally, the data is changing everything.
Yeah.
We have talked with a French guy which is working on Silicon Valley with in a Lucid Air Motors.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very interesting to discuss with him because it told us that the cars is all connected and they collect data from everything.
Mm-hmm.
So a few years ago, the car manufacturer was working with OEMs and he was centralizing. It was centralizing the design of the cars and the motor of the cars, but all of the equipment was made by the OEMs. And now with the data they collect, they can finally solve some problems and find some solutions before to ask them to produce the product.
Yeah.
And finally, if they can cross the data from the cars with the data from the production line,
yes.
They will be a lot more efficient. Do you agree with that?
I completely agree, and that's exactly what we're finding, and that we're doing is, especially these days, or a lot of early failures that can be found in newly produced cars. You can very frequently tie them back into the manufacturing defects that happen, and so. In general, I think that's the way of the future. I think that the whole data sets will be connected, and it becomes like a digital thread for every vehicle. Exactly what's been, exactly what happened to every component. Exactly, how each component is performing, and you can very easily trace, if anything's going wrong, back to any part of the production process or. The performance, so you can potentially isolate even design issues much faster.
Yeah, so data is changing. It's changing everything.
Yeah.
So you will have a very potential evolution, very positive and very fast. I hope.
Yeah, we hope so too. That's why I'm telling you, it's a very interesting industry, and I think it's very exciting where it's heading, and. We definitely see a lot of potential of, facilitating with our solutions, much faster and much more efficient, process across the life cycle of these vehicles.
All right. So if we can help, don't hesitate. So it was a pleasure to discuss with you, dear Greta, and we keep in touch. And I hope you will have some big success in Europe. And if we can connect you with the car manufacturer, it will be a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Herman, and thank you for having me on the podcast.
No, it's a pleasure.
Mm-hmm.